topper, the second, fourth, and I think fifth or sixth ranks all came from the state of Kerala. And this is no accident. The fact is, when I was a young man, and I have to confess that I didn't take the examinations at any point, it certainly was an aspiration for all like me, but I happened to get a scholarship to study abroad, so I went abroad and that was that. But the fact is that at my time, it was the most desirable profession in the country. The cream of the crop, the best students in places like my own college, St. Stephen's College, always sat for the IAS examinations. In those days, the Indian Foreign Service was the acme. If you didn't come in the top 10 in the country, you could not make it to the Foreign Service, because usually the first few all opted for that. In those days, foreign travel was extremely rare and unaffordable for the ordinary person, so there was a particular glamour associated to a profession that took you abroad so much. There was also, of course, the lure of foreign exchange salaries, which in those days, you may remember, we didn't have much of in this country. It was a profession that people admired a great deal. Then with time, government service still appealed, but the foreign service gave way to the IAS, because as the country liberalized a little more, foreign travel became relatively more commonplace and affordable. Certainly with liberalization, the magic, the allure of things that were foreign simply no longer applied. But the IAS still was considered very influential, and then we had perhaps a reflection of the changing value system in our society. We had a rise in the popularity of the Indian Revenue Service, which in the old days was looked down upon. But many people seem to feel that was a service that offered a number of incentives, I hope principally legal and official incentives, to, shall we say, put aside a good retirement nest egg if one took that service. So these were the kinds of developments. Still, government service is popular. But as our liberalized economy created a more diverse and varied set of choices in our society, government service as a whole became, frankly, less attractive across India. The number and quality of applicants for the IAS examinations has been going down systematically in the last 15 or so years, to the extent that whereas in the 70s, literally the top half of every graduating class from a liberal arts college would be sitting for the examinations, today it is barely 2 or 3% of the top half of a graduating class that is doing so. The one exception to this trend is Kerala. And one can ask all sorts of intriguing sociological questions as to why that should be so. What is it about Kerala that clings stubbornly to the admiration for government service? Is it that we have become a state with a social conscience, and therefore we are attracted by the notion of public service through the government? That would be perhaps the more flattering way of seeing it. Certainly when I speak in public, I usually prefer that explanation. Malayalikalukku janasevanam cheyan ishtamana. Adukondaanu nammal ee pareeksha ezhunnathu. That is very much a line that I'm happy to take. Or is there a less flattering explanation, which that is that perhaps we are unwilling to take on the challenges of private sector work, entrepreneurship, industry, and prefer the security of a government job? It's a very difficult question to answer, because in fact, as you know, Keralites are fairly adventurous and risk-taking. We travel to other parts of the country, we travel around the world. Malayalis can be found in every corner. In fact, the only human being, till a few years ago when he passed away, who lived on the North Pole was a Malayali. A chap called, I think, Tony Jesudasan, who had married a Finnish woman or something, and had the last habitation on the North Pole, the only habitation on the North Pole. Malayalis are everywhere. I mean, the joke when Neil Armstrong landed on the moon was that he got off in a spacesuit and there was a Malayali there offering him a cup of tea. I mean, that has always been our reputations. If we are so adventurous and so risk-taking, why is it that in this area we seem to prefer the security and predictability of a government job? I don't know. I'm not offering you answers. I'm raising questions. But I do know that Kerala is still one place where the cream of the crop are willing to consider sitting for these examinations and aspiring for careers in government. And interestingly enough, I went and congratulated 4 of these top 5 kids this year, and at least 2 of them had qualified to be doctors. And I thought, my gosh, you've gone through all the burdens of studying an MBBS and whatever, the house surgeonship and all of these things they have to do to become doctors, and after that you want to join the IAS? And they said yes, and the implicit answer, I don't want to ascribe it to them particularly, but the implicit answer is that the career prospects and the predictability of a future were better assured in government service. And I'm very curious, I mean, Shibu may have his own thoughts on this matter, whether having seen so much of the labor mentality in our state, but I'm very curious that this is the case. At a time when, say, in Christie's era, you had to be excellent and compete against the best of the rest of the country to get into the services. Today, the best of Kerala will, I think, more and more frequently be found in the top 100 in the examinations, because not only are they very good, but they will not always be competing with the best of other states, since those people have gone off to other professions. And it's a very, very intriguing and curious question. But let me stress that whatever it may be, what the organizers of today's big event, the Excell Career India Center, James Joseph and Kalyana Sundaram, what they have done is certainly cater to a genuine need. There is in Kerala a very large population of bright, talented young people who would wish to join the IAS, the IPS, the Foreign Service, all the services listed out in such detail by Mr. James Joseph. And I think that to be able to give them the kind of coaching that would complement their normal academics is very important. The fact is, of course, that I come from a liberal arts background myself. So I tend not to believe with Mr. James Joseph that there is any such thing as irrelevant information. To me, all information is fascinating and interesting. I deplore the practice of only studying for the examinations. A true story of a former brother-in-law was that the day he qualified to be a doctor, his mother hurt her knee. And he came home and she said, "Thank God now I have a doctor's son, look after my knee." And he said, "I didn't study the knee because it came in last year's exam." That is the typical Indian, it's a true story, but this is the typical Indian reality. And what Mr. James Joseph wants is that students should only focus on the exam result. That's what coaching centers will accomplish, and no doubt they'll do well in the exams. But in the rather larger examination called life, I think they need to have some other information as well than what, because the examination called life asks questions that might have come last year, that might come again next year. And those questions also have to be answered by the students. But I'm not here to have a philosophical argument with Mr. James Joseph. I just want to say that single-minded pursuit of exam success is important. I know that because I have met some young people who have done the exam 3-4 times and failed every time. And perhaps if they had had the benefit of a good coaching center, they would have been able to focus on what they needed to pass those examinations. And when you have a career objective like that, this is definitely worth pursuing. So I want to wish James Joseph and his colleagues, Dr. Kalyana Sundaram and others, all the best in bringing this service to Kerala, and particularly to Kerala's capital, Thiruvananthapuram. I asked if it's an online center, what is the significance? Shibu had the same question. What is the significance of a Trivandrum center? I'm told that there will also be actual classes and remedial instruction and so on being offered in the center for those who wish to come and be coached face-to-face and not just online. So it'll be a combination of online and face-to-face training, and that I think is also very desirable. So I'm very glad that the center has come to Trivandrum. I wish you all every success. May you produce a lot more toppers. I see from this leaflet that they already have 7 last year from their other centers, And next year, I hope that from Thiruvananthapuram, we'll have even more than 7 pictures of young people from this constituency who have made it to the services. Thank you very much. All the best. Namaskar.